What is up, boyos? It is Water Buffalo Man here, and we're back for more Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle. Alright, so I've been seeing a lot of people online specifically just ragging on this Goku Black. I've also seen a few of you stand up and defend the unit in the proper way it should be. A lot of you are actually jumping the gun and denying the unit its actual due justice because it hasn't been in game yet, and a lot of you are just going off of what you read and off pen and paper and assuming that, okay, this unit's going to be terrible. Kind of similar to what I did with the Super Saiyan 3 Goku LR that just got the easy A. I kind of went a little bit ahead, didn't give him the credit was due post-Super. Is he as good post-Super as, like I said, he was going to be, the Super Saiyan 3 Goku? No, he's just about as bad, but pre-Super, he is really good. Similar case to this Goku Black. So I can see where a lot of you are claiming that this is a very bad unit. I understand from a bit of your standpoint, but I also disagree to a very high extent. So let me break down this whole unit and explain my logic behind why I think it's a really good unit and where on paper it actually looks really good, and it's going to be really good because of the statistics that have been done already for it. So the categories that a lot of people are, the biggest issue that a lot of people have with this unit are the Super Bosses category and Corroded Body and Mind Leader skill, which I kind of completely agree. If you look at the leader skill, it doesn't have much going for it. Realistically, this unit does not have a whole lot in his Super Bosses category or even the Corroded Body and Mind. There isn't much here. Realistically, the categories are just based around Goku Black, Zamasu, and like coolers, random ragtag units like Janemba, the Majins, some androids. They're ragtag units for the Corroded Body and Mind, and Super Bosses is just a mixed unit of Universe 6, Tournament of Power units, Zamasu's, you have the occasional Broly in there, but that's about it. So realistically, you're probably not going to run this man on his own team. You're most likely going to be running him on this team, excuse me. You're going to be running him most likely partnered up with the Fusion Zamasu, which is ideally where you'd want to run him, because of his Fusion Zamasu being the one-turn leader in slot 1 because of his damage reduction and everything, and then switching over to the second turn, or whatever, vice versa, this man being your slot 1 on the other turn. So that's probably where you're going to want to run him side by side with on that team exclusively. So, leader skill aside, this unit is actually really good. And right now, this leader skill is not the answer to go to, because Super Bosses Realm of God's great because of the fact that you can switch it to running it on this team, and you're most likely only going to run Zamasu, so this team is going to be ideal. But again, Super Bosses leader skill aside, not the greatest option. Super attack, though, this is where I look at it and I deem this unit as really, really good because of the fact that he raises attack and defense for one turn, similar to what Beast Gohan does. He raises his attack and defense for one turn. Beast Gohan doesn't raise it for one turn, he raises it for... Alright, so see, as you can see right here, Beast Gohan raises defense for one turn on his Super and then raises his defense for 4 turns on his Ultra Super. But the key difference between the Gohan and this Rose right here that I kind of like more favorable towards that Rose is right here. Raises key +1 up to 5 and within the same term, attack and a chance to perform a crit up plus 20% with each attack received. So, what that means is every time this Gohan gets hit, he gets an additional 20% crit and 20% attack. This is where I like the Goku Black a little bit better because he raises attack and defense with every attack performed, and it's by 30%. So realistically, yes, the Gohan takes more hits, he gets stronger, which is clearly understandable. That's the point of slot 1. But this Goku Black, I understand there's a little bit of difference there, but let me get to my point first. This Goku Black starts at the beginning of the turn, key +2, 200% stats, alright? He guards all attacks for one turn from the start of his entry turn. So the first turn, he's got a guaranteed guard, alright? Then he reduces damage received by 6% per Super Bosses category on the team up to 30%, which would stack to the 30% he'd get before attacking. So it gives him 60% damage reduction plus guard in slot 1 for the first turn of his appearance. I don't know why my screen keeps sliding up and down like that. So that would give him 60% damage reduction plus guaranteed guard for either turn 1 or turn 2 that he's out there on the field, whichever rotation slot you get him in, which is actually really, really good. Then he launches an additional attack per Rainbow Key Sphere obtained, which this is up to 5 Key Spheres after you launch your initial attack, which you're going to launch a Super, so there's 30% right off the rip, plus up to however many Key Spheres you get, let's say you get 5, per each normal attack performed, or any attack performed really, you get an additional 30%, which would be the equivalent to the super. So if you get 5 key spheres, let's say you get the absolute worst situation possible, you launch the super attack, you get 5 rainbow key spheres, he does 5 basic attacks. You're still getting the stat equivalent raise to launching 5 more supers. You're not doing the damage correct, but you're getting the stat equivalent raise. And then he launches an additional attack after that 5th one that has a high chance of becoming a super. So that would be attack 7. And then, unless my math is off here, I think it's going to be 7. Yeah. And then he launches an additional super attack every time the character attacks 5 times in battle. So there's another super which you'll actually get the damage output from. And that's attack 8. Then not to mention his passive, or not passive, I'm sorry, his hidden potential kicks in, which could give you a 9th attack, which also would give you the additional stat buff of 30%. And that 9th attack could also be another super. So you could theoretically launch anywhere between 3 to 9 supers a turn. I'm assuming it doesn't specify whether it can, but launch an additional attack per rainbow key sphere obtained. It doesn't specify if these are going to be stuck as normals or supers. It does not specify. I'm assuming they can be supers, but let's just say they can't. That's still 30% attack defense per normal attack, plus the additional 3 supers you're going to get. So that puts you at either 8 or 9 attacks, with anywhere between 3 to 9 of them being super attacks. And those super attacks, mind you, would be getting a 60% buff versus the 30%. Because you get the 30% per passive, everything is calculated differently, plus the additional 30% attack and defense on the super itself. So you're going to be gaining massive amount of stat buffs from him just attacking. Yes, he loses this 30% damage reduction after he attacks, but the amount of defense you will be gaining on his attacks will cancel that, will balance that out perfectly. You would absolutely have to go out of your way to give him 1 rainbow key sphere, or just get very unlucky, to absolutely get this man to being the bare minimum you can do. You would have to physically go out of your way to try to do it. And even then, he still retains that 30% damage reduction, which you're most likely only going to... I don't know why my screen's doing that. You're most likely only going to run him on a Zamasu-related team. And then, if you do happen to activate the domain, he gets an additional 10% attack and defense per Super Boss category enemy and his allies, plus an additional attack defense of 10% for characters to our extreme class, so he buffs himself by 20% on top of that, which then, if you look at some of his link skills, which he actually has some really, really good links, I'm not going to click on himself, I'm just going to click on this Goku Black here. If you look at his link skills that he's running, he gains an additional 15% attack per Super Saiyan, Nightmare. Prepared for battle, he gains an additional 5% defense and 5% attack, which that means alright. Chance of forming a crit will go up by 5. But the big one that I like is he retains big bad bosses, which I was hoping he would. I would have preferred Cold Judgment or Thirst for Conquest down here somewhere, but I don't know if he would have linked with anybody anyway with that. I was talking to a couple of guys about it. But he still will retain the attack and defense of 25% per big bad bosses, which will be an even bigger buff on top of the amount of damage he is dealing and being able to take. His stats look pretty good across the board. He's got a decent defensive stat. I mean, and if you look at the units he's got linked up here, he also can run alongside this support Goku Black, which, hang on one second, let me actually break something down here really quick. I went on to Twitter and looked up Halberd, because I know he always does these calculations. This is the Goku Black start of turn, 260k. Post his first super, which is, like I said, this one here, the initial launch super attack. He is going to be sitting at almost 500,000 attack, or defense, I'm sorry. This is without a support unit. And if you gave him 5 key spheres, he's going to launch all of these basic attacks, which will raise his stats. Then, attack number 6 has the possibility to be an additional super, so boom, which would raise it to that one. Then you have the high chance of launching it right here. And then you'd have the 8th super, which I don't remember exactly how that falls in the line. Hang on a second. So you'd have the main base super. My numbers are off. There's too many attacks going on here. So we got the main super here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. And then 9 for the hidden potential. Yeah, so that would work. Okay, yep, that makes sense now. You could launch all of these attacks and have a defense stat of over 2 million every turn. It's possible to get this high of a defensive stat, even if you only get to this percentage. If you launch 5 attacks. Just 5 measly attacks. You're still sitting at almost a 1 million defensive stat. Mind you, all these calcs are done at 55%. you're looking at almost 1 million defense without a support unit. You run a support unit on your team, which is literally my point of saying you could bring this Goku Black and slide him in there and he gives 40% defense. You're looking at close to over 1 million, almost 1.1 million on his defense after those 5 attacks. Also, the stats he gains from links are 65% attack, 30% defense, ki +6, crit chance +5, and defense down by 10%. As well as when you go into the transformed state, which I haven't even dove into yet, so we're actually going to go do that right now. He's got a max defense on this state of 2.4 million. But that's kind of mid though, right? He's got a max defense of 2.4 million, but then if you transform him into his clone state, which, I mean, I probably won't. I'll probably keep him normal on my team because I want to keep that damage reduction. This is somewhere where I agree with a lot of you having issues with the unit. The fact that he loses this damage reduction before attacking, or after attacking, I mean, it's kind of fine. It is what it is. But he greatly raises attack and then raises defense for 1 turn on his super in this transformed state. But he gets a pseudo attacks effective against all types, which is in essence having a guaranteed crit at all times, because he's just going to do damage no matter what type he's facing. He gains, like I said, has that 66% damage reduction right off the rip, so he's going to be able to take hits. He randomly changes key spheres of a certain type to rainbow, so he's supporting his ability down here to get the rare chance of becoming a super attack per rainbow key sphere obtained, which, don't get me wrong, rare chance is only 10%. I get it. But there is really no limit on rainbow key spheres you can get, which you can really only get 5. But you can get up to 5 rainbow key spheres, which you can have up to 5 additional super attacks at a 10% clip, built in with the hidden potential. So in essence, it is possible you could launch 9 super attacks in this state here, have no qualms about that, and raise his defense through the roof. And then he also has that great chance of becoming a super attack, which is I think 70% chance of launching it on top of the 5 you would have gotten prior. And then he gets a guaranteed super every time the character attacks 5 times. And he just gets a measly, 33% attack and defense buff with each attack performed, which is, 3% higher than what the previous state would get. Not to mention he's gaining 50% attack versus 30, and he'd be getting this additional 33, so he'd be like close to 83%. But the calculations, like I said, are done differently when it comes to passives and super attacks. But without support, first turn, he's looking at 279k defense. With support, he's looking at about 300,000. First super down and out of the way, he loses that damage reduction, yes, which kind of sucks. But he drops down to 482,928 defense. After the first additional, it goes up to 602,000. After the 5th additional, it goes up to over 1 million. After he launches his 8th additional attack, which would be the ideal perfect turn, he is looking at almost 2.5 million defense. Without damage reduction, yes, but the 2.5 million defense, there's not really a unit that's going to be hurting you at that point. With a 40% support, again, with going back to that Goku Black I pointed out earlier, the AGL, start a turn, like I said, 294,000. Post first super, he's looking at about 542,000. Again, no damage reduction because that's gone. Then after he builds up attacks and attacks and attacks, he's looking at upwards of a max capability of defense being at 2.74 million. Defense, mind you, that's his defensive stat in the cloned state. He's looking at almost 2.74 million versus his normal state, which he's looking at 2.4 million. I mean, what is there to complain about on the unit at this point? I get it. I get the fact that rare chance shouldn't be a thing at this point in Dokkan, and the additional attack thing, I kind of understand that per rainbow key sphere obtained. But he's got the ability to launch at least 3 minimum supers a turn if you get everything to activate the way you should when using the unit, because that's the point you'd want to do with it. 3 minimum supers and however many, well, technically 4 minimum supers if you count the hidden potential, because you have your main super, the high chance additional, which is 50, I want to say, and then you have the additional super the 5th time, so that's 3, plus the hidden potential would be 4, and then all the additional super attacks would be 5. So, but in the essence, you're gaining supers anyway because you're getting that additional 30% attack and defense. Honestly, I feel like a lot of you just judged him way too soon. He's a lot better than people are going to give him credit for. I know he's going to be a lot better than people are going to give him credit for. He's easily going to be one of the top. In my opinion, he's the going to be one of the number 1 TURs. He's going to be top 3, no question. People are going to use him, they're going to see what he can do, and they're all going to backtrack and backpedal on what they said, but nobody's going to admit they were the ones that said how bad he was. But I think he's still going to be really good. Easily top 3 No question at all there. Once we get him in game and really see what he can do. His leader skills, his biggest issue, which I've really talked to quite a few people about. They said that is the only problem they see with him. They see the God Goku is a little more versatile than this man because of his leader skill. But again, I'm not looking at the leader skill, I'm looking at the unit's kit as a whole here. What can he do by himself? I think he's easily a top 10 unit. Not even top 10, I'm sorry, top 3. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the unit. Like I said, I think he's a top 3. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.